A very warm, on your feet, welcome, Governor Patrick Wilson.
I thought instead of just giving a speech, why don't we have a conversation with each other? Is that okay? Is that okay? All right. What type of questions have you got? By the way, I want to recognize Mayor Bill Durham. Is he here? Just y'all give Mayor Bill a applause. I used to be called mayor for life. I think you're mayor for life now.
Yeah, I remember last time when Jimmy was the regional director and Jay Trini back there, we had a regional, and you know, you came to talk as mayor, and we're thankful to have you. So let's get this started with the first question. What's your assessment of North Carolina's economy and some of the accomplishments since you've been in office?
Well, we got to remember where we were a year and a half ago. I was sworn in on January the 5th of last year. And at that point in time, North Carolina's unemployment rate was the 5th highest in the country. We were beating New Jersey, Nevada, California, I believe, and one other state. And I mean, can you believe North Carolina's unemployment rate was the 5th highest in the country a year and a half ago? So we had to make some immediate, strategic, long-term, and urgent moves. The first one was this, and most difficult. When I came into office, we realized that we owed the federal government $2.5 billion for unemployment claims that we borrowed from the federal government. No one had a plan to pay it back. By the way, guess who pays it back? You do. And therefore, we're increasing your unemployment costs every year, which is impacting your businesses. At the same time, I got input from employers saying I had job openings, but people weren't taking them because they were waiting for the unemployment extension. At the same time, my debt I had to repay, and had we expanded unemployment, that debt would now be over $3 billion. Very, very difficult decision because many people on unemployment can't find a job, but there were others who were turning down jobs. So we made the decision not to extend unemployment and also lower our unemployment compensation equal to what South Carolina, Virginia, and Tennessee were paying. We had the 9th highest compensation in the United States of America in unemployment. This is a tough decision, and by the way, it doesn't poll real well either. But I think it was the right decision, because since that decision, we've lowered the debt from $2.5 billion to $600 million, and we hope within the next year and a half we get that to zero. That means you get to keep more money in your pocket. I'm going to tell you what else it's done, because it's the only factor. We're the only state in the United States of America that didn't do this, that did not extend unemployment. We've had the largest drop in unemployment of any state but Florida in the last year and a half. Our unemployment rate is no longer the 5th highest in the country. It's not even in the top 30. We're now in the top 20 in employment, but we still have a long way to go. So that is something we work very strong on. Probably the other 3 things very quickly. We had to do some major transportation reform. You know, we kind of had a good old boy system in North Carolina on how and where roads were built. It was built mainly where the most powerful politician lived. And that's not the way we should be building roads. If you ever go down North Carolina roads and it go from 2 lanes to 4 lanes to 2 lanes to 8 lanes, you know what I'm talking about on the way to the beach? You know what I'm talking about, right? By the way, wherever it was widest, it was named after a state senator or a governor, most likely in their hometown. That's not the way we should be building roads. We should be building them based upon the 3 criteria: congestion, safety, and economic development opportunities. And that's the way we're doing it now. So we changed the formula that's been around since 1988, and we made it based upon criteria, not politics. So the good old boy system isn't running the road system anymore. And just because I was mayor of Charlotte doesn't mean all the roads should go. It goes based upon a formula that's based upon those 3 major criteria. And that's a major change. Economic development is one of those major criteria. The other tough issue we're having to deal with is Medicaid. we had a $535 million, when I walked in, misforecast by the previous legislature and administration. $535 million misforecast. We had to deal with that, and we had to make some very, very tough decisions. I'm pleased to report, as of about 5 weeks ago, instead of a $500 million misforecast, we now have about $50 million more than we forecasted. And that's good news. But I'm telling you, that is still the most serious issue the state is going to deal with, is healthcare and Medicaid. Because if the costs keep escalating, it's going to take the money from everything else. And the last thing is, teachers have not gotten pay raises for about 5 years, except for 1%. I'm pleased to report that we gave a 5.5% average pay increase plus longevity pay to the teachers of North Carolina. And that's a lot of progress in a year and a half. So those are pretty good.
The hotel industry relies heavily on tourism. What's your assessment of the tourism industry in our state, and how do you plan to continue promoting them?
Well, as y'all know, in 08, the end of 08, 09, 010, 11, everything was hurting. The secondary home market was hurting, which was impacting tourism. The gas prices were very high initially in 08. Even the supply of gas was being impacted both in the mountains and the coast. At the end of 08 and 09, I was running for governor, believe me, I know at the time. I mean, everything was being impacted. But now we're seeing a real resurgence. In fact, we even see it in our gas tax right now, where the gas tax revenue, I just heard today, is up for the first time in a long time, because people are back on the road again with goods and services and travel. But we also recognize that in North Carolina, we need to continually improve the way we promote travel and tourism. And it needs to be a more of a team approach in the Department of Commerce. Sharon Decker, working with others in your industry, are now really focusing even more on travel and tourism. There's always been a focus, but we recognize we have to constantly improve upon that and recognize our strengths of travel and tourism. And Sharon Decker is one of the best salespeople I've ever been around. We've got a great commerce secretary, and I'm very pleased to work with her. We're privatizing the marketing aspect of commerce, which includes travel and tourism. So we'll move quicker, more humble, more nimble, more quickly, and have a real marketing campaign that's also supported by the private sector. So that's another major change we've made in the Commerce Department. So we've stepped on a lot of toes in a short period of time. You probably don't read about all that on the front page of the Charlotte and Raleigh newspapers, but I'm very, very proud of stepping on the toes of some things to get long-term solutions to a very, very important industry, and that's travel and tourism.
Okay. Well, what were some of the things that were not included in the budget or have not been addressed in the recent short session that you would like to see accomplished?
Several things. I wanted a tax credit for historical buildings, especially in our small towns and our big cities. Because if you have abandoned buildings in your towns on Main Street, it's very hard to sell new business investment or travel and tourism. Vacant buildings or blight are the worst things a town can see. And I want to revitalize these. And sadly, the historical tax revision sunsets right now, and I did not get that back in. And I was very, very disappointed in one of my chambers that did not want to include that. And I think that impacts your industry too, because we've got to sell our small towns, and we can't have vacant buildings, because that's not a way to sell. And if you have a vacant building in or around your hotel or something, you don't want to be around it, and it causes problems. So we want to revitalize those towns, and I'm going to bring that up and put pressure on my fellow Republicans to vote for that, and some Democrats too, come January. The second thing we didn't get was the career plan for teachers. I firmly believe that teachers should not get everyone get the same pay increases based upon experience. We should be paying teachers based upon 4 criteria, which would be completely different for the rest of the nation. One criteria is experience, because with experience comes wisdom. Another criteria is your marketability. For example, math and science is the hardest teaching degree to get right now, and the hardest to recruit and retain. Guess what that means? You need to pay math and science more money to keep them and slow down the retention. In the past, it says, well, that's not fair that you pay a math and science teacher more than you would a PE teacher. You know what? That's the way the market is, and you pay based upon the market prices. That's just the way it is. You make a decision whether you want on math and science or in other areas. Right now, math and science, it's paying more money. You deserve that money. Another criteria is leadership. Certain teachers play a stronger leadership role in our schools than others, and to help other teachers, and therefore they ought to make more money. And the only way a teacher is to get promoted right now in our schools is to become a principal. Well, some teachers don't want to become principals, and frankly, might not be good administrators. But we ought to have promotions within principal ranks, just like we have within the engineering ranks in engineering companies, where not every engineer needs to become a manager to make more money, because you want them to stay an engineer, not a manager. And I think the same thing applies to teaching. I'm very disappointed we didn't get that done. We were hoping to have about a $9 million trial period and about 8 counties for that. That wasn't accepted. There are several other things, but we got 80% of what we wanted from the legislature. That isn't bad. I'd be a millionaire in baseball if I batted that well. But I'm very pleased, but I'm going to continue to fight for the other 20% that we didn't get.
What do you see as the areas that have the greatest growth potential and boosting North Carolina's economy in the future?
We've done a major economic development study in our Department of Commerce, and we've segregated our industries to see which industries are growing, which are remaining flat, and which ones are decreasing. Let me tell you the ones that are frankly growing. A lot of manufacturing is coming back to North Carolina. I'm firmly believing, and I'm saying that many of you might be in the service industry, but you cannot live off the service industry alone. We've got to continue to have companies that make things, that build things, that innovate things, and grow things. If you have those companies, then those people come and spend their money on travel and tourism. But if we're all in travel and tourism, or service industries, or hospitals, or government, who's going to pay the bill? Who's going to have the extra money? So I'm really putting an emphasis on manufacturing in North Carolina. And the good news is the international manufacturing that was leaving us during the past 20 years, some of it's coming back now because of travel logistics, because of gas prices, and because of machinery. We're also seeing the biotech industry in this area be very strong, which integrates with our agriculture industry. We're also seeing major industry in medical fields doing extremely well. And we continue to see banking and finance continue to grow in North Carolina too. But another area is travel and tourism. From the mountains to the Piedmont to the coast, we see incredible opportunity for travel and tourism to grow. For example, in the Wilmington area, if we get more hotel rooms in that area, we think we can compete more effectively against the Charlestons and the Savannahs and others. We think there's great potential. In the New Bern area and other beaches, we think there's better chances for promotion. In the mountain areas, we think there's incredible opportunity if we package it even better than we are today. And the same things for some of our city centers and small towns. We think there's great opportunity for travel and tourism, especially with the retirement community, the military community, and so forth. Which mentions one other thing is military. We're going to continue to fight for our military bases, and we're having great success in doing that. We have not had the reduction that we've anticipated. I've spent a lot of time at the Pentagon for the past year and a half and at the military bases. And we're also, for the soldiers coming back home from Afghanistan and Iraq, I'm very proud that we're offering them in-state tuition for our universities and our community colleges. Because we think there's great potential to use the military to have them stay in North Carolina and make a living in North Carolina as opposed to going to other states. I want those veterans to stay here and make North Carolina their home for the long term. So we're making an active effort to recruit the military veteran and use them as a recruitment tool to recruit new manufacturing. So that's part of the long-term strategic plan.
Well, that's all the questions I have. I want to thank you.
I'll take 2 questions from the audience, but if you have questions, and then I'll let, if Mayor Bell doesn't ask me a tough question. Any questions from the audience? Yeah, for me. Yeah, I'm new. Oh, good, not Mayor Bell. He asked me the toughest questions the whole time. Mayor,
First of all, welcome again to Durham.
it's great to be back in Durham, home of Thomas Stiff, my chief of staff.
I know him very well. He used to be a city council person. But you spoke about some of the things that you were not able to get done. And I certainly appreciate the fact that you're going back to the historic tax credits. That's a very important piece. But one other piece of legislation that happened, and obviously we're pleased with it, is the repeal of the privilege license tax. And one of the commitments I thought you made is that we're going to get the leadership on the House side and the Senate side to try to work out something in time for the legislature to come back in January. Still planning to do that.
Yeah, we're going to be working on that, but I also want to make sure we keep the integrity of the tax reform, because what we did was on the tax reform, I hope you've noticed your paycheck, you're going to be paying 2% less income tax than you were before. And that's a net increase in your budget. Now, on the bad news is I also increased your movie theater taxes. You're paying 50 cents more. But you have a choice. You want more money in the consumer pocket so they can go to movies, which they weren't getting because wage stagnation has occurred. We needed to get more money into the consumer pocket and not take it out of the paycheck. And then hopefully, now that all the people who are working are going to have 2% net increase, they'll spend more money on travel and tourism and other needs, or on homes or construction or things of that nature, which they haven't had before. Because one of the great challenges we have right now is there is wage stagnation, especially in the rural areas. And that's happening nationwide, and our stats are showing that at this point in time. But we are going to look at that privilege license. Any other questions?
So one of the questions that I had is, as we travel across the country, minimum wage has become a major issue, especially in many jurisdictions where cities are enforcing different minimum wages. What's North Carolina stand? Is there a law regarding if different cities can enact different minimum wages, or is it state level it? And what's the status in terms of how our legislatures feeling right now?
Well, I personally believe that the state minimum wage will stay what the federal minimum wage is. Whatever the feds decide to do, the state will stay at that same level. It's frankly up to the cities on what they want to do, but because I believe in state, local flexibility, but I also believe that my goal is to get people into better jobs, and I don't want to destroy the entry-level job. The dilemma with the whole minimum wage argument is that summer jobs are different from entry-level jobs that are different from other jobs, and they all seem to be put in the same parameters, and there are different parameters. And I think the whole minimum wage debate needs to be really examined regarding what types of jobs are we talking about, and to make sure we don't stop the entry-level job, especially the summer job, the intern job, when you're 16, 17, 18, from getting experience of showing up on time and doing hard work, just like many of us have to do. My first job was $1.60 an hour, I think $1.65 an hour, and then I was thrilled when I got a construction job for $2.85 an hour, and then worked 80 hours a week and got overtime. And I thought I was the richest guy in the world, making $2.85 times 2. And that made me work hard, and made me study even harder when I went back to school. So I think it needs more examination. I think in the long term, you've got to look at some cost of living issues down the road and tie it into cost of living, as opposed to just huge jumps one way or the other.
So Governor, first of all, thank you for coming. On behalf of all the small business owners, job creators in this room, I truly think that they appreciate what you've done as the governor in this beautiful state. A couple things to keep in mind, maybe during the next session, what we've seen across other states is there is a cap at certain state levels where minimum wage has to follow whatever national wage is, and cities and counties don't have the opportunity to go up and down, depending on the legislative elected leaders that are in that city or county. So some of them maybe put them in the state level would be a great idea. The other thing is we've talked a lot about.
I would rather have a straight one across the state, be more consistent.
Even better, right? And I think that consistency would be key throughout the rest of the state. There's one other program that we've seen implemented in other states is, for example, Texas spends $30 billion of its budget to attract more tourists to the state of Texas. And the return on that is for every dollar that the state of Texas spends, it gets $7 back in taxes into the state itself and into their budget. So if the state would spend more money promoting travel and tourism, I'm sure a lot of folks in this room would be happier to be able to fill their rooms at higher occupancy and higher rates. So that may be something for you to look at as well.
We are, one thing I don't have is Texas oil money, but one of my goals is to get North Carolina gas money, natural gas money. And one promise I've made is if we get natural gas in North Carolina, exploration both offshore and inland, that we commit some of that money. For example, if we get natural gas off the coast, that we return that money to the coast and help like re-nourish the beaches and things of that nature, dredging, which is impacting travel and tourism, and put some of that money back into industries that help travel and tourism. So, but as I tell Governor Perry, I know Governor Perry very well, and he's a competitor. He's a down-home good competitor too. I respect him. But at the same time, I need to get some new revenue into North Carolina, and we think that's why I'm getting North Carolina in the energy business. And I'm pleased to say the administration has given me permission out of DC to begin seismic testing off the coast to see if we have any natural gas. And then the legislature just gave me permission to begin some test drilling, probably in the Sand Hills area, to see if we have any wet gas. If we have wet gas, we get new revenue, we create new jobs, we have more disposable money. That in turn will help us promote travel and tourism in North Carolina. So,
When you find it, let us know. We'll put hotels on.
you got it. We'd love to have hotels all around. Hey, thank you all for, I'm impressed with you all as entrepreneurs. Keep the best in North Carolina. And I don't take you for granted coming in today. Thank you very much. God bless you. Bye-bye, y'all. Bye-bye, thank you.
Don't everybody leave.
Jay, come on, buddy. Mr. Chairman.
You guys see what all the social media has done to us? Everybody has to have a photo of everything right now. Make sure you like those photos. All right, again, we thank Governor McCrory for being with us today, and we do have a number of other special guests, and we want to start with a very special gentleman from this area. For those of you who have not been to Durham before, hopefully you're enjoying your time here in this beautiful city. And next up, I'd like to present to you the Mayor of Durham, William P. Bell. He currently serves as the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer for UDI CDC. He is a retired senior engineer, Big Blue, which makes sense here in the state of North